into this grace in which we now stand. And we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Not only so, but we also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us, because God has poured out his love into our hearts by the Holy Spirit, whom he has given us. Word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Amy Lingard, and Mike is not towards me. All right, now it is. I'm Amy Lingard, and I'm a sophomore at Pioneer High School, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about an experience that called me to do more in my faith and, called me to become a better person. So, every year, our high school youth group goes on a missions trip to a Native American reservation in order to expand our views on injustice, poverty, and in our own faith. This year, we went to the Apache Native American Reservation in White River, Arizona. This trip was a time of very new experiences for me. It was the first time I'd ever done anything like it. And little did I know when I left, but it was going to be something that I would never forget. We spent 2.5 days in 4 15-passenger vans getting to the reservation. We spent 4.5 days working and interacting with the community, and then 2 days coming back. This trip was full of a million firsts for me. It was the first time I'd ever been away from home without my parents. My first ever visit to Six Flags Magic Mountain in Southern California. My first real exposure to poverty and injustice. The first time I had ever really felt the power of the Holy Spirit when we attended a magical and an immensely emotional worship service. The first time I had ever worked with a group of kids that had each other and not much more. The first time I visited an actual orphanage. The first time I felt like I had been gifted with a strong and accepting youth group family. My first Apache taco. The first time I really felt God move in my life. Going to White River was an eye-opening experience because they were a community in poverty, something that I had never really seen before. I lost my place. Everything was subsidized there, and because if people were to charge the full price, no one would be able to pay for it. And there were food stamps and instructions on how to make purchases and obtain them, and those were things I had never seen before. There were kids who didn't know love or friendship, and an attempted teen suicide rate of 1 to every 14 minutes. It was so crazy how different the community was from what I knew. While our group was on the reservation, we stayed in a middle school, showered in the elementary school next door, and ate and did everything else at a nearby church, so our 15-passenger vans were a necessity. During the first 2 days, my work group called the White Crew, not because of our skin, but just because, I guess, we worked on painting a stucco house. And I don't know if you guys have ever tried to paint a stucco house, but it takes ages. The whole house was stucco. And it was a 2-room house with 10 people living in it. The house belonged to a woman who had been on the list to get her house painted for quite a few years. And it was good to know that it was finally her turn. Being around the house was not the same as walking down the street here in San Jose. There was trash, old tires and toys, even a knife, and 2 stray dogs wandering around outside. And from what I heard inside the house, I didn't want to know anymore. People were arguing, a child was crying. At one point, a teenager ran out in a fury, and I thought to myself how horrible that sort of living situation must be. For the next 2 days, after we worked on the house, we ran a program for the kids in the community so that they'd have a place to go other than the streets. We played with them, sang songs, colored, made crafts, gave them a fun Bible lesson with a skit, and even played on a huge water slide one day provided by the church. They were happy to play with us, but those kids didn't have much. Some kids came without shoes, some with clothes that were too dirty or were too large or small, and some of the kids, I could tell, had been brutally exposed to things beyond their age. We were told of the addiction, gang, violence, and suicide problems on the reservation, and I couldn't help but think about seeing those kinds of things at such a young age. On the outside, I could tell they were children. They were happy to play tag, squirt me with a hose, sing songs, paint my face crazy things. But on the inside, they had experienced things that no child should ever. One night, our group attended a worship service at a place called The Kennel. The Kennel was a faith-based teen hangout with a basketball court, skating ramps, food, foosball, and video games. It was pretty neat. The service we attended there was extraordinary. Every single teen there was filled with something completely divine. The 4 teen worship leaders were amazing. They sung their hearts out to God, cried out to God, got down on their knees and prayed with shaking hands and broken hearts. They inspired us to do the same. By the time half of the service had passed, everyone was in tears. It was amazing. We were hugging, wiping each other's eyes, telling each other how much we meant to one another. It was beautiful. The Holy Spirit was there, and amongst the pain and tears, there was hope and beauty. I remember a Native American teen yelling out to God, "No more gangs, no more violence, no more suicide." That hurt. Seeing a teen deal with that pain broke my heart. I knew that I could go home to a safe and accepting place, but he had to stay and deal with the pain. That ignited a passion in me, which then came out in a lot more tears and a lot more shaking bodies that really no amount of hugs could cure. But now I realize that was God's subtle hint saying, hey, you know you hate seeing this. You know you feel like that sometimes too. You should do something about it. There was lots of pain on the reservation that injustice and poverty brought. Who knew that there could have been so much affliction from poverty? I was angry at all the things the people on the reservation had to deal with. I knew it was unfair. From serving on the reservation and seeing the children, the teens, community and living situations, I promised myself to work for injustice and poverty and alleviating the evils of people's lives, like the ones I met in White River, Arizona. I wanted it to stop. I just felt that it was so unfair that I had a good life, and because they were in a horrible situation that poverty and injustice had brought them, I couldn't understand it. But the little taste of what I got from the reservation and all the people there was tormenting enough for me. I couldn't begin to imagine having to face a life with that much pain nonstop. I wanted to change things for them. I brought back a whole new outlook on being thankful for my life. Throughout the week, we were with the people on the reservation. Lisa prayed with us as a group that God would break our hearts so that he could rebuild them the way he wanted them to. I came back from the reservation with a broken heart, but thoroughly changed, transformed from the inside out. That trip provided everything I could ever ask for. It fueled my ambition to make a difference and essentially sparked the elements for the person I am now. I came back not really able to understand how much it had changed me, but now I can understand. That trip called me to do more. Although my body came home from the reservation on July 5th, 2008, I'm not really sure my heart ever left. It was God's plan for me to see poverty and injustice and feel a burning passion to do more. Serving on the reservation was such a radical thing. Something so awesome, so divine, and so transforming that it was truly God's plan.